Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay at the back? Can you hear me okay at the front? Because the speakers are pointing that way. Okay, great. Scientists have proven, I believe, that the way to invigorate and excite the human mind is to trap them in a warm, dark box straight after lunch and hope they pick up something. It's proven, I'm telling you, teaching techniques are going to change in this country. Okay, so I have the unenviable job of trying to find some way of stopping you thinking about falling asleep, and I'm hopefully going to do that by risking life and limb in live coding. Well, live copy-pasting, let's call it what it is. So we have a bit of that coming on a little bit later on. You have the fortune of being one of the few audiences to have seen, or to be seeing soon, any of these technologies. These are really new things. And with that comes obviously a small health warning, mainly for me, in that things should go gloriously well some of the time, which in effect is a bit how microservices work. In effect, you're building a distributed system, stuff goes wrong. Anyway, so what I'm going to show you is a few new technologies today, but I have to start with a story. You see, there is a way of getting through that food-induced fugue that you're going through, which is to tell you stories. So I'm going to start with a little story and a confession. About 12 months ago, I gave the talk of my life. Not only did I go out life and limb on this talk, I also gave the possibility for personal embarrassment on a level you probably don't even realize yet. I was ready to crash and burn in a spectacular fashion. You see, what I did is I went out on stage and thought the best way to calm my nerves would be to play guitar at the beginning of the talk. Little hint, if there's one thing you take away from this talk, that's not a way of calming your nerves. Particularly when a laptop crashes first thing in the morning and you're supposed to be doing a sound check at the QE2 Centre and you're an amateur. You turn up to practice, but sound checks don't work that way. They basically are one chord, sounds good, off you go. So I was nervous already, but I haven't told you the best bit yet. Some of you might have been there. You see, I decided that the most romantic way, in fact, of asking my girlfriend at the time to marry me was to do it on stage in front of 400 strangers after having played a song by AC/DC, well known for their romantic arrangement, by the way, called The Highway to Hell. Thankfully, it went okay. I think peer pressure had a lot to do with it. And the great thing about this is that now I have the opportunity to up my game. Everyone in the front row get nervous. I have the ability to up my game now because, okay, things have gone fine there. All right, I'm now married, fantastic, so I can't actually ask anyone to marry me. But I can do the one thing that's more nerve-wracking than that, and that's to show you some coding, or me coding. And that is even worse. That is why I've chosen today not to play guitar, because it doesn't help your nerves. Okay. The thing is, things went swimmingly well for me on that day, and it was the most surreal of days because I spent it basically being chaperoned around by my heroes under speakers. It's fantastic. The problem was microservices were still in hell, or in many respects, even for the last 12 months, I think, whereas we're not necessarily in hell as much as I tried to emphasize it last year, we're certainly in the doldrums. I think at the moment, when people decide to adopt microservices, they end up with a bit of an interesting choice on their hands, a CV-driven choice. Let's do microservices. That will look fantastic on the CV. Because that'll save us money. Let's do this thing. Let's make it hard on ourselves to deliver anything ever. Now, I'm not saying it's a terribly hard job. I'm just saying that it's been in doldrums. It used to be worse. A year ago, no one knew what they were doing. We were making it up as we went. Well, I wasn't, but others were. Making it up as we went along. We were trying things out. And in fact, if someone was to ask you, what are all the things that you need to know in microservices to do microservices? I actually did a talk like this. I actually came out with a stack of index cards and said, this is everything you're going to need to master to run this stuff. And then I took the first sort of 7 or so and I said, these are the things you care about. These are the things you think you need to learn. These are the things that are unique to you. And then there's all this other stuff that's hard to do. Where are your circuit breakers going to be? Where is your event sourcing going to be? I'm sure you've encountered a whole truckload of great information at the conference so far on all these topics. But we're still a little bit in the doldrums because it's still hard. So what were the solutions in this space? I was getting a little bit depressed. I was a newly engaged person. I should have been on cloud 9. I was partially. But there was another part of me that was as a professional going, microservices are still difficult. Slightly depressed by this. Okay, so what can we do about that? What came to our rescue? Books. We have a wonderful characteristic in this industry to create books. I myself have written 3. I'm not so proud of 1 or 2 of them. Never buy the first book by an author. No, it's not true. There are pretty great ones out there. But mine, not at all. My first book has singly the worst front cover of any book in history. It's an O'Reilly animal book. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's an Aspect J cookbook. On that front cover, not only does the animal look like it hates you, but if you are of a certain mind, that animal looks like potentially you've interrupted it in the middle of something private. When I was shown the front cover of that book, my editor sent me a quick message. He said, sorry. And yet I still continue to write books, and I do think books have their place, but they're not as helpful as you think. They're going to give you lots of options, lots of choice. They don't always give you, this is the way you should do it. And that's hard to give because it's context dependent. Okay, so books, they go some way, but they're not going to save our life, really. There are tutorials out there. I'm pretty sure that there is any container vendor on the planet that will tell you that's the way to do microservices. The only thing you need to know is how to use Docker. Done. Massive profits will then result. There are tutorials out there, technical tutorials. There's a lot of choice, and there's huge amounts of bootstraps and getting started. You love that? Getting started. That's the whole narrative for us half the time. Is here's how you get started with blah. I mean, you're screwed after that, but you can get started. There's get started with Docker, I'm sure, by the way. I've not even checked these things, but I'm sure. We've got get started by Docker. We've got get started by Weave, I'm pretty sure. Spring Boot, I'm absolutely convinced. I think I wrote some of them. And then Spring Cloud, Boot Cloud, those things as well. And that's good, but it's slightly dissatisfying. Because we've got tutorials galore and initializers, which are great. They get us running. But unfortunately, then we run into a wall, a dearth, a pit even. But there is also an answer out there for that pit or wall, and that's a consultant. For full disclosure, I've been one, I am occasionally one. Everyone does things in their youth they're not proud of. But I tell you what you do as a consultant, you learn what other people's problems are, right? Wow, do you? So yes, you can always get consultants in to help you get over that getting started drop-off. But the real problem, if you take a step back, is that you start off looking like that. This is how microservices feels in the first few days, not just because of the CV overload that you're achieving. But very quickly you go from that to something that's a bit more like that. And there's no one to catch you. Unless you get more consultants in. Which is also a little bit unfortunate. Does anyone know the collective noun for a group of consultants? Anyone want to shout it out? I have to say I've been a consultant many times. I've built a company of consultants. That is the epitome of evil. What is a group of consultants? An invoice. It has to be. Okay, so I think this is a little bit unsatisfying. And there are plenty of very good, very reputable consultants out there that will help you adopt microservices in a sensible way. But there's something missing. If all we can do is getting started and vague tutorials, context-independent tutorials, then we're kind of doing ourselves a disservice. And it's not just about microservices. Microservices makes it harder. If it was difficult to create a project and get started on something new back in the day, why do we think it's going to be easier now that we have to create a project every couple of days because we have something new? In fact, part of my new enterprise I'm working at the moment, we've been around and spoken to a lot of people who've adopted microservices, and the key complaints are creating new projects. It's a pain. Figuring out what best practices to apply, that's a pain. And they feel pretty much across the board that the story sucks. It's the worst story. As a developer, our developer narrative sucks. Because all we have is the first 7 pages of a script, a movie script. Has anyone read Save the Cat? Oh, read it, it's a fantastic book. It's basic, ruins films for you. All of them. Forget, even Memento. You'd think that film would survive. No. They all follow the same formula. It's terrible. You wait for things to happen. In the first 7 or so pages of most scripts, someone who's reviewing that script is expecting to see the hero save a cat. No, not explicitly, but actually do something important and wonderful to define the character, to make you buy into the character. Now, these scripts are wonderfully engineered things because they keep you in a darkened room on a sunny day for about an hour and a half, doing nothing but staring at a screen. Pretty much what you're doing now. Wonderful things, but that, if you look at our developer narrative, our developer storyline, with microservices or not, the story stops. It goes, you really like using this thing. You feel great. Woohoo, you're Homer. And that's the end. Good luck. And I got a little bit depressed with this. Don't get me wrong, there's probably consultancy money to be had. But I got a bit depressed with it. So what was really needed from all this? I felt we needed a proper developer narrative, a proper storyline. Something that has a beginning, middle, and even an end. And as I was working day in, day out with microservices, I found myself feeling that I was jumping around everywhere, trying to continue the narrative after the greatest getting started in history. I had great 7 pages, and then I had to make the rest up myself. Meanwhile, whilst I was on stage proposing to my soon-to-be fiancée, bless her, clearly I was punching above my weight. You can tell that, right? I'm a convincing sort. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, a bunch of much smarter people than me were having some interesting conversations about pretty much the same thing. They were putting together, if I don't get sued for this talk, it would be unbelievable. They were putting together the A-team, right? And this is a group of professionals. That some new faces, some old in our industry, some of them you may recognize, some of them you may not. Fantastically smart people coming together and producing, with a particular face that you possibly do know, a way of doing microservices that might be a little bit better than what we're used to, a proper narrative. And that was a year ago. Meanwhile, I was buying a motorbike, having fun, and getting married. But they actually decided, for some crazy reason, that I was a good idea to get involved in this because I've been around so many people that had problems doing microservices that, well, when they described to me what they were doing, my response was, you're giving a glass of water to a man struggling across a desert. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. And so now, yeah, I am part of what came out of those conversations, which is Atomist. Atomist is probably one of the best funded, no one knows us, technology companies that I've been ever party to. Of incredibly smart people, and I'm not just saying that because I'm the dumbest, easily. There's incredibly smart people in this company that are actually trying to solve some problems. But what does this mean to you? All right, that's an important point. We're not just going to create technology and go, whoo. It's got to be about what you can do with it. Well, what you can do is kill your annoyances. See, our developer life is plagued by these things. Every step, it's a ouch, ouch, and we get really used to it. Actually, it gets worse. Some people get so used to it, they start to love the jailer. In fact, some people start companies because the jailer's so cool. Right? That's the problem we have. We have a development life that is just bump after bump, and that's what we're trying to take out of our lives a bit. And we're trying to beat the doldrums. We're trying to stop microservices, or frankly, an awful lot of different tasks in your developer life, your DevOps life. This is where I really need Park Life soundtrack kicking in. Your developer life, trying to get rid of those doldrums so that it's not as painful as it currently is. So what do we start with? Well, I'd love to tell you, in retrospect, that we were geniuses and we leapt to the right solution immediately. That is not how life goes. Plans are declared in retrospect. I'm convinced of it. Doesn't matter how smart you are, you're always going to look back and go, boy, I wish we could have done that on day one. So the first thing we looked at was improving the developer story by creating some software that creates software, and we started with templates. What if you had a little template project that could just get you bootstrapped straight away? The whole industry has these things. That's what the getting starteds are. So it wasn't satisfactory to us. We started to bump into some problems with this and go, we're really not adding much to the world with this. However, it turned out, in a conversation, or a few conversations, we do these offsites. Oh, I should mention, Atomist is entirely distributed. We're not a remote working company. We have no office. We are around the world. There are 2 or 3 people in Australia, there's a few people in North America, there's a few people in the UK, there's some people in Germany. And we're distributed around the world. There is no central office. And so we found that what we could do is, if we could build something that could solve our distributed development problems, if we could scratch our own itch, then we might have something that is useful to others. And we found it just wasn't templates. It wasn't getting started. Something else. This is where you really get sued. We called it Rug. Anyone recognize the movie? Raise your hand. Awesome. If you don't, shame on you. Go and get it. It's like $4.99 on whatever your preferred system is. Okay, The Big Lebowski. And in The Big Lebowski, the key figure, the absolute central character of the whole movie is the rug, in my opinion. Okay? The rug that holds the room together. We called our language Rug because we wanted something that held our development life together, that held our code together. We had many repos. We had many projects to start and end. Lots of things have short shelf lives. How do we create something that understands these and helps us deal with the problems of doing it? How do we create something that's for the whole developer narrative? for us. This is Rug. And you're the first, other than a few blog articles, to see it. Let's hope it works. But why would we come up with something new, entirely new? I mean, we did. We came up with a completely new language. We did this, I think, for very sensible reasons, not just because we're technical people and we like this sort of thing. We came up with a new language because we identified a new bounded context. In DDD terms, we had a new area of concern. We saw nothing in this space, nothing that could draw together multiple repositories from multiple distribution mechanisms and figure out how to make changes across them and then sensibly apply them. We didn't have a meta-programming model for working with different languages. I know this is a Java conference. We're going to be doing some Java work in a minute. But Java is not where it ends. In microservices, typically we're talking about some form of polyglot. So we need something else that could work at that different level, a different bounded context. We needed a new ubiquitous language. And so we had one. We created one, which was Rug. It was incredibly new. None of us had actually thought about doing this before. And so what does it look like? What does it contain? First of all, it's dead simple. Deliberately so. If you are looking for complex flow control, ain't gonna happen. Well, I say it isn't gonna happen, you never know. But it probably won't happen. It actually only has a few things it can do. And it turns out those are the few things that matter. It's incredibly focused on solving the problem of how do I look after this huge distributed mess of services and code across different repos. And therefore, it is an external domain-specific language. And it enables something that I didn't coin the term, but someone said it when they first encountered it. This is meta-programming. This is programming about programming. This is writing code that changes code. Now, we have had some experience with this before. I've been around long enough in this industry to have encountered code generation. Is it embarrassing? It probably is, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Who's used rational rows in their career? Now, I was one of the beta testers for rational rows. Before it became IBM, etc., right? Became IBM, bought by. Before all that happened. And it had this thing called code generation or forward engineering. Then it had reverse engineering. Then it had round-trip engineering. None of this worked. For me, ever. I would go and change my code, I'd put a comment in. Whoa, worst thing I could do. My code gen's gonna get rid of that, because that comment wasn't important, ever. Slightly annoying. So I was dubious at first when we came up with this idea of meta-programming. I thought, are we really just gonna recreate round-trip engineering and cause ourselves a whole bunch of hassle? Turns out not. Turns out the state of the art in this has moved on considerably. And we did it with a couple of very simple concepts. Turns out meta-programming doesn't require much more than this. It requires a means of meaningfully selecting something from a particular model. So if you're working with Java, mentally, when we're Java developers, we know that we're working with classes. We also know there are files, there are properties, there are probably POM somewhere in it. But we know we're working with classes. But most generation tools don't really get that. They kind of files, text, boom. And we didn't want to work at that level. So we created a couple of models of how software actually looks to a developer. And we figured that you could navigate those models using selection. That was the first thing, we could select things. I mentioned my first book was on Aspect J. If has anyone done Aspect J? Awesome, brilliant. You all look so happy. Does anyone love point cuts? Yeah, that's not going to happen, is it? Okay, so point cuts are a bit like selection. Point cuts in Aspect J, in AOP, look it up if you haven't bumped into this horror. The idea is that you can select something interesting before you figure out what to do with it. That's what Rug does, but it doesn't do it with point cuts, don't worry. So we can select from a model that could be files, could be lines in a file, could also be classes, could also be a Java project. It can get even better. It can say, I want to deal only with Spring Boot projects because I pretty much understand how they're laid out. So we can select and we can manipulate. We can change, modify the contents of projects, multiple projects, and we do this in a declarative, friendly fashion. So let's have a quick tour of this beast. We'll start off with archives. Now, this is where it gets a bit hairy. I don't know how much time I've got, but I'm going to try and speed through this. Oh, I've got 2 minutes. Let me show you what I've got. Okay. So, importantly, here is an archive, a RUG archive. The first thing to point out, if you can see, I don't know if you can see a bit on the left. Don't worry, I'll talk through it. Build it back. On the left, it's just a project. It's a compilable Spring Boot project. Okay? The only difference is that it has a .atomist directory, because we're slightly egotistical. And inside that directory, we have, best of all, most importantly, some tests. We actually have a means of doing test-first meta-programming. You declare what you expect to occur, what files need to be there, what are the contents of said files, whether there should be a POM present, what should be in the POM, blah, 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 blah. These things understand the structure of your code. Once you've written some tests that fail, you can then go ahead and create some editors or generators. This is a generator. We can tell that because we have this little annotation there. A generator means it will create a new project for you. An editor means it will change an existing project. When you run these things, you can run them against projects locally or on GitHub. If it's on GitHub, you'll get pull requests from Atomist. We've also got a few other concepts of importance. This is one of Rod's favorites, discouraging XML usage. If you don't know Rod Johnson, where have you been? But if you don't know Rod Johnson, he created the Spring framework, and it's quite nice that he discourages the use of XML, I find. Okay, so he detects that in a reviewer, we can look for what's currently in your project, and if we see something ending in XML, we don't recommend using it. That's a polite version of what we had originally. If anyone's ever pair programmed with Rod, he types like he hates the keyboard. Wonderful, angry man. Okay, so we've got some reviewers. We've got this idea of templates. The idea with templates is you can create something, but then there are parts of it that are parameterized. They're going to be replaced as an editor runs. Okay? And none of this is tied to Java necessarily, but it's wonderfully well supported for Java because that was the first model we had to deal with. It also turns out we've got some fantastic team members who love Clojure. And I love Clojure too, but I still struggle. But they love it, and they've come up with a whole model for Clojure as well. Turns out we've also got a huge chunk of the team, one, that's a Python expert. And he's come up with a model for Python as well, so that you can manipulate Python sensibly. The difference there is when you write these particular editors, you can start to manipulate at a level, you can find one here. This is merging templates in, that's taking a README template across, working at the level of files. File is a type that we have. There's so much I want to give you a tour of inside RUG for how you can manipulate your projects. What we found is that we were developing so much quicker because RUG was there to review and to edit our code for us. If we want to add a trivial example, say you want to change the server port on your Spring Boot file. At the moment, you probably have to change it in a few places, particularly if you're using Docker for packaging. We have an editor that does it for you. Detects these files are there, tells you the amendments you need to make, submits a pull request to your repo. Go ahead and change it. Choose when you put your pull requests in. You can even reject the pull request if you want. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to whiz through the last bits. But the main thing is to point out that inside, let's not add a slide, that'd be weird. I've never done live editing of slides. That would be whole new for me. So we've got RUG archives, which is just projects online. I'm going to put out a bunch of tweets after this talk that are links to the code. including the Maven build tool that you'll use to run the tests that you've just seen. This is all very real. There are archives out there which are just, at the moment, GitHub repos. You have project generators, editors, which will actually go ahead and suggest modifications. Reviewers that will tell you what you might want to change. If you're an architect and you've always wanted to turn around to a bunch of projects and say, and detect, are they doing something? And then saying, this is what you might want to do instead. This is what it does. And then they'll ignore it because you're an architect. We've got executors, a whole different level, right? Remember I talked about that bounded context of working with projects and metaprogramming. Executors is like a whole new level. Now we're tying our repos to a collection of other services, such as issues. What are the microservices here? What are deployments? We can interrogate those as well. Proper metaprogramming around our services. The main point here that I'd like you to take away is this is specifically a set of tools for your narrative as a developer for working with microservices. And we want to see RUG everywhere. Right now, you can run RUG locally. I can show you. Anyone wants to see it in a minute? Come see it. I'll run it. We can run RUG through links, which we've already published, so they're actually on the GitHub repos. So when you click on a link, it actually runs the RUG you can see. And we also have it running, of course, because who doesn't, in Slack. The little bot you can ask to run your RUG as well. And then we went meta, just to give you an idea. One of the ideas we wanted in the company was to eat our own dog food, although we really prefer the phrase drinking our own champagne. Because who wants to eat dog food? So we have a project out there that I'll point you towards, which is the RUG Archive project. In there, you can create new projects that are ready for writing your own RUG scripts, because we use RUG to create RUG. Of course we do. And there's a button on there you can click to create your own RUG projects as well. Don't worry, again, URLs are coming out in a bit. So RUG in summary, it's a bunch of generators, editors, reviewers, tests, executors, and they tie your development room together. Give it a run. See what you like about it. It's software that truly creates and evolves software itself. And do you know what? The title of the talk's a little bit misleading. It's not just about the microservices developer story. It's really about a developer story. You can pretty much use these tools to manipulate and evolve whatever you'd like. But our mission isn't done. If you want to come speak to us, including Rod, if you want to, upset Rod, go for it. He's angry. Have fun. You can join the Slack and come and talk to us about these things. There's some docs that we published yesterday. We've got our own blog. Don't worry, links are coming later. Just follow me on Twitter, and I promise you I won't rant too much. But, just before I leave you, there's always got to be one last thing. I loved that phrase. Where has that gone from Apple's talks? And even if you hate Apple, which a lot of people... Anyone got a Galaxy 7, is it, in here? You all seem to be sitting quite comfortably. There's some fireproof boxes at the door you can see. Anyway, one of the things that this guy, that I liked that he did, was the one last thing. And I have to leave you with this. Here's the one last thing. We're open sourcing RUG in the next couple of weeks. The whole language implementation is going to be open sourced. You'll be able to extend the language, you'll be able to extend everything it does, you'll be able to see how we're doing it. We're not just open sourcing the language itself, we're also going to open source the tooling, so you're going to get the CLI, you'll be able to work with it locally, some wonderful little commands. You can just run one line command and your projects are edited. Bear in mind, you've got to write tests to make sure they're edited appropriately. There's a CLI to run, there's language, of course, itself, and then there's a shell. And the shell is a wonderful little tool you can use to manipulate your code and see what's going on, locally and remotely. So watch the space. It's interesting stuff. It's fun. Give it a spin. Keep watching for the tools coming out and the open sourcing efforts over the next couple of weeks. We're going to beat the doldrums. We're going to beat the problems and pains of microservices and developer life generally. We feel with RUG, we've got a really good place to do it. But we're not going to create everything that RUG needs, because we can't. But it is a fun environment to get involved in. Together, we can tie the room together with Rock. For Java and other environments, even for the JavaScript guys, we can give them some love, surely. They're already abused by their entire stack. Rug, as opposed to other platforms, will not remove features suddenly. Anyway, thank you very much for your time after lunch. I do appreciate anyone who can withstand the ability to shut one's eyes in a darkened, warm room after lunch. Thank you. And please, get in touch, come and see me. Follow me on Twitter, even if it's only for the next couple of hours. I'll be putting the links out then. Then you can ignore me because I go off on one. I binge tweet sometimes. I'll fill your entire timeline with nonsense. But for the next 2 hours, I promise I won't do that. So if you want to get those links, next 2 hours, follow me. And also follow Atomists. They don't do any of that bad behavior. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.